Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, gamers, geezers, geeks, and film aficionados alike. It's a very special fast food films. Imagine films as a type of meal, and sometimes you get nice pieces of sushi with your Japanese horror films, and sometimes you get full-blown banquets with your epics like Waterloo, and other times, most of the times, we eat hamburgers and pizza and fast food films. this week, or this episode, we'll be talking about Independence Day, which came out in 1996. And I remember when Independence Day came out because I was at college and I was in a maths class. And when the maths teacher found out I had a VHS of Independence Day, he stopped the class, wheeled out a TV and video, and we watched 30 minutes of the film. Anyway, Keith, this is all your ideas. Let's go through Independence Day and why you consider this a fast food film and why it's important.
I not only consider this a fast food film, I consider this probably among the best because it's near as damn it perfectly executed. And I mean, you could, if you went into this film in depth, there are loads of plot holes, there's loads of issues with it, but as a piece of entertainment, as a blockbuster, you know, we're almost going back to kind of like before the Marvel time, before the thing, as a blockbuster film, you know, from the sort of 80s, 90s period, this is near damn perfect. I don't think there are that many films that top Independence Day. Certainly for me, because it covers everything. It's got a little bit of everything in there. It's got that geekdom. You know, I mean, it came out at the perfect time. It came out in 1996 when alien conspiracies and the X-Files were at their height. They had all the sort of, you know, you used to get those sort of UFO files and other things that you collect every 2 weeks and put them in binders. There was all that shit in 1996. And along comes this bloody blockbuster film with Area 51. Will Smith, who had just come from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which was huge in the UK at that point because it was playing on the BBC too. So you had Will Smith, you had Aliens, you had Area 51, and it just exploded. And to me, I was trying to think what film we would kick it off with. What, you know, there's other films we can kick off with. There are also a few other blockbusters that come to mind, certainly from the 90s. We're not going to include the 80s yet because the 80s and sort of late 70s is kind of obvious where we're going to go. We probably will get round to them. But this was I think, a slightly less obvious one. But, you know, the idea of a blockbuster is that you escape. It entertains you. It allows you to escape your mundane life and eat popcorn and watch a film that just it gives you joy. And Independence Day does that. It does it to the letter. It's a perfect 2 hours of spectacle, good versus evil. It's proper grey areas. It is goodies versus baddies. You have that awesome speech from Bill Pullman's president, which is just, you know, we are not going to go into the good night and thing. It's brilliant. I mean, I fucking love this film. Every time I watch it, it puts a smile on my face. And at the end of it, you're like, yeah, you know, especially when you're feeling down. It's a great film to watch. It's just fun.
Yeah, it is fun. I find it weird because it has a real kind of the 3-act demarcations really clear in it. It's a weird thing to say because you have, when you think about kind of films, they're supposed to be in 3 acts, and they split up the second act a bit for this, that, and the other. But you have the start, yeah, and at the start you have the alien spaceships come through the atmosphere, and then you have that big reveal as that massive cloud of like gas and boiling whatever is on the outside where it's been heated up in the atmosphere and it cools down, and then you see it kind of, I don't know if it's over New York, where it passes through the cloud, and then you get to see it's this fuck off great big UFO, and then everyone's going, are they good? Are they bad? And then Jeff Goldblum's running around going, they're bad. They've got a fucking giant ticking clock that we need to be aware of.
And
yeah, go on.
I was going to say, you talk about that opening scene, but that was quite a new thing, because usually with alien invasion movies, like, they land in secret, they're hiding out in caves, they're kind of, sort of infiltrating the human race quietly, sneaky, kind of, you can't see us until it's too late. Independence Day, no, fuck off. We're just going to put 15-mile fucking ships above your cities and blow the fuck out of you. Not many films had ever done that.
True. It was. It's funny because it reminds me of old BBC show called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, based on the books by thing. And I think it's ironic because I think some of the people who worked on the special effects for that worked on the special effects for Independence Day. And when they put the special effects and stuff together, they just went out and bought a ton of Airfix kits.
Yes,
I think they bought, like,
see, I was going to talk about the special effects, because Independence Day is also a mark in the sand. Independence Day was one of the last big blockbusters to use what we would now refer to as mostly practical effects. Now, Lord of the Rings broke the mold a few years later, but other than Lord of the Rings, Independence Day was sort of the last one where most of the special effects you see are not CGI. In fact, they are mostly models and miniatures. Yes. Lord of the Rings was a bit of a mix, but Independence Day was that last big blockbuster before CGI really kicked in. And there's a lot of there are a lot of effects shots. There's over 3,000 in Independence Day, but the number of them being CGI versus practical is quite out of kilter. I think there's something like 20% of the shots in Independence Day are CGI, whereas the rest is practical effects. Now, if you watch it today, I watched it today so I could refresh myself for this. I watched it today, and I watched the extended edition, which is quite cool.
There's an extended. I never knew there was an extended edition.
Yeah, there's a whole story. There's kind of a couple of stories that follow the kids. So one of the younger brother is ill and has an illness, and you see a lot more sort of shots around him. There's other shots with the girl who meets the boyfriend, and there's a couple of shots with Brett Spiner, especially where he's in the ship with what's his face, David, who's played by my brain's already going. I'm cracking names. Jeff Goldblum. Yes. And Jeff Goldblum, Brett Spiner goes, "You're making us look bad." Because he keeps telling them, "Oh, yeah, but this is their language. Oh, this is their computer language." But no, I mean, the effects were, as I said, mostly practical. Now, I think you were going to touch upon the Airfix kits. Because
I was going to touch upon the Airfix kits, but I was going to try and build into the thing because we have that big kind of reveal, yeah, and you have the giant alien spacecrafts come through the atmosphere, and they do that. And then you have the build-up, right? And that's like the first act. And then when you clearly move into the second act is when they then attack. And that's the bit. That's the bit that got everyone going, "What the fuck? They just blew up the fucking White House." And they did. They blew it up, and they did it. That's a practical way. They did it in such a great way because you kind of see it kind of like pass through the building and then pop and explode as it's going along.
Here's the thing: when they filmed that, Fox invited all the press to watch them do it, and it's massively slowed down because the actual they just blew up a model of the White House, and the press went, "Oh, is that it?" Because when you see it in normal things, go, and that's it, boom, it's over. And Fox made this big thing: "Oh, we're going to blow up the White House," and they had this miniature. And they sort of set it all up, and then it blew up in like a second. It slowed down like 20 times, I think, to get that shot. And it's the same with the Empire State Building. Although that shot is an interesting fact, and we'll come into this later. But that same effect, where they blow up the Empire State Building, is used again very late in the film. And I'll tell. We'll come back to this.
Yes, I know what you're gonna say in regards to that. Yeah. But yeah, he has that clear mark where it was like kind of as soon as they attack, that's act two kicked off, and then you get to act three when they then fight back and they figure out what to do. And I found something really irritating, and it's not really to do with Independence Day. It's to do with the 2005 or 2004 War of the Worlds, where they had the aliens got beat by common bacteria, which is in the story, which is over 100 years old. And as I walked out from the film, I heard somebody mutter the stupidest thing ever. They did what they did in Independence Day with the virus. I'm like,
no.
Oh, fuck off. No, they didn't. It doesn't work like that, dummy.
Yes, the virus was obviously an influence from War of the Worlds, but that first act is again, it's perfectly nailed. The build-up and the build-up of tension, it's so well done. I mean, opening shot where you've got Kennedy talking of the speech about sending man to the moon, and then you've got that plaque on the moon, and then you hear it's one giant leap for mankind. Armstrong's audio comes in quietly, and then that shadow just comes across the moon. You're like, whoa, what the fuck is this? And yeah, go on.
As I said, that was an opening, and it's weird because they did Stargate too, and when you watched Stargate, the turning on of the gate was a big event, and it was like a real big event. It was like, dude, this is exciting. That shit fucking works. That's awesome. And then it's the same when they said you see you see something pass over, and it is kind of influenced by the opening of Star Wars, where you have the rebel ship and then the Star Destroyer. But I think they did genuinely improve upon that, because you do have that. You have no idea what's coming over, and then when you see it,
because they didn't show it, and that was the clever thing. You see, with Star Wars, nobody had ever seen anything like that, and that scene where Leia's little sort of piddly ship comes firing lasers, and then you just get that big fuck off Star Destroyer coming over. If you've never seen anything like that, and you see that for the first time on the big screen, that's amazing. And it can clearly influence a lot of films. But Independence Day did it in a way that you don't see it until near the end of the first act, when it bursts out of the cloud, the fiery cloud. And they even have that build up of the fiery cloud. They show all around the world. They very cleverly did this, where they were showing news clippings, but news clippings in different languages. And funny enough, all Fox owned or all Rupert Murdoch connected, which is interesting, because you had Sky News in the UK and things like that. But you see like little computers, like a radar shot of it and everything. You still don't know it, and it's that bit where over New York it suddenly bursts out the clouds, and you're looking at the screen. It's the same as all the people on screen who are just staring. You get 5 minutes of people staring as this bloody thing comes out, and then you kind of get introduced to Will Smith's character as well, and Will Smith, and that always makes me laugh, because
that is so well done as a scene, because that just shows the kind of gravity of it, where you were in a situation like that, you probably, if you had slept in, you'd probably react the same way he did. What the fuck's up with the neighbors? And then all of a sudden, oh yeah.
And then you see how big the damn thing is.
Yes,
because that's the first time you see the scale of it, because you've got tiny little Los Angeles, and then you've got this big fuck off 15-mile across spaceship hovering over the top of it. And then that's when the build up changes. It starts getting more dramatic, and we're getting faster scenes coming through, and then we get the stripper scene when she's in the thing, and then
oh yeah. Trust you to remember that part. Hang on a second. I just want to show. I've got the reveal scene here, because it is awesome. Sorry, I'm trying to make. I want to. But it's
no, please,
because it's that bit. So you got the shadow going over everything, and then everyone's like, everyone's shitting their pants, because it's like, crikey, they've come in force. And if you listen to anyone in the military, tell us if aliens wanted to invade this planet, there's probably nothing we could do. There's the two towers, Twin Towers. Sorry, the two towers is Lord of the Rings. But everyone's like going, oh my god, there's something arriving, and then everyone's going crazy, and that shadow just keeps going and going, and then you get the bit where you've got the cloud from where it's come through the atmosphere, and then it just bursts through the cloud, as it starts cooling down, and that's a great reveal. It's like aliens are real, they're here, and they look a damn so hostile in comparison to other things.
It was something new. We hadn't seen that before. We'd seen Star Wars, we'd seen things, but even in the 90s, we hadn't seen an alien invasion film quite like this.
Of that scope. And that's weird because today we can do alien. What was that one that was the one that you hated? The Skyline.
Yes,
yeah. That was done on like next to nothing money wise.
Mm.
Yeah,
oh, I know.
And that was the equivalent of that.
So was District 19, which is kind of influenced by Independence Day. Or was it District 9? District 9. Sorry. I love that film. It's a low budget film, and it's brilliant. Minus the South African accents. That was heavily influenced by Independence Day, with the shit hanging over the city. But no, I mean, there's nothing quite like that revealing scene. And I remember sitting in the cinema, and I'm just going, "This is fucking awesome." And it was one of the first films that I remember as sort of like a sort of young adult getting quite excited about. And I saw it about 3 or 4 times in the cinema. I think it was one of the first films I ever was allowed to, because by that point my parents would let me go out on my own, and I just would go back and see Independence Day because it was just fucking brilliant. And it's that scene, and then you get introduced to Will Smith's character, and he, there's an earthquake and stuff, and he's going to go back to bed. It's only an earthquake, and then as you say, he comes out and he sort of staggers out into the garden, picks up the newspaper and he's like,
yeah.
And then the wife comes out and goes, "What are you looking at?" And he's just like, "Oh," and then the kid comes through the two of them going, which sort of gets the tension slightly out. But then you get the scene with David at the White House, and he's going, "They are going to attack," and then he proves it, and at that point everything just starts going into sort of overdrive.
It does something that they don't really set up in films anymore. It's like, what do you call it? Characterization. Even for a fucking popcorn fluff film, they set it up, and before the shit really hits the fan, that you've got the Jeff Goldblum character. I can't remember his name now. David, who is a guy who looks after the cable networks. He's very well educated because his father keeps going on about it and goes, "What are you? You fix cable for a living?" It's like, it does a bit more than fix cable for a living, yeah. And he's getting shit off his father, so he knows that he's kind of like he's a bit of a slacker. And then you've got Will Smith's character, and he desperately wants to become an astronaut, yeah. And then he's got his wingman and everything like that. And then you've got the President Whitmer, or whatever his name was, and he Whitmore. Was like Whitmore, yeah. And he was He was a former fighter pilot. Went down the military route and then decided to become the president. That kind of thing. And you got that clear, and then you've got the fact that you had the relationship between Jeff Goldblum and his wife, and then you've got the president and his wife, and Will Smith and his wife, who happens to be a stripper, which you add, remembered without hesitation, which. And then you've got all those things. You've got the characterization of the kids and all this stuff here, so you kind of get a feel for what's going on. And films don't tend to do that anymore, and it's like you kind of show a few of their flaws. You show that the what do you call it? The guy who plays the president doubts himself, doesn't think he's like kind of this, that, and the other. Thinks maybe this is a job for a better man. You've got David, whose father's fucking just smashed him over the head because he's fucked his marriage up, and he seems to be a cable repair guy. Yeah, so he's got flaws. And then it's just, I miss those things in films.
They perfectly build up the president, because right from the offset they make out he's a weak president, and he fucks up. I mean, he generally fucks up quite a few times, but in the end he is a hero. And just like the other two. You see, I mean, David was the cool one for me because I was a geek and I was into computers and shit, and what he does, I was like, this is cool. And the bit where he locates locate. I mean, nowadays, where's my wife at? I do it on my phone.
Yeah. Find my phone.
Back then, that was like, I wish I could do that.
Yes.
And when he sticks the little cool satellite dish on top of his head, I thought that was the coolest fucking thing ever. And he gets his laptop out, and it was just like, I mean, it was bullshit, but it was amazing at the time.
It was more the fact that the battery lasted so long on the bloody laptop. That's the thing that got me, because in those days it was like you got an hour and a half, maybe. So yeah, it's all right. We've got Nigel in the chat, and we said we'd be doing this last week, and he's clearly forgotten. Okay.
No, it's not Sunday, Nigel.
It's not Sunday. It's not Sunday. This is fast food films, mate. So anyway, getting back to, so you've got all these great characters, and then like you do with any good story, you grab them and shake it up and fuck it up, and then you have the attacks. And it's like I've seen a lot of. I love watching old B movies where you have the kind of alien attacks and whatnot. And I can't remember any off the top of my head apart from More of the Worlds, but there were definitely other ones I watched, like Attack of the Flying Saucers and all of those bits. And it was cool. It was really cool. And I love those. Like Them is another one with the giant ants. They weren't necessarily aliens. Fiend Without a Face, and it kind of plays into that, and it is it's in the B movie strata without being a B movie. Yeah, it's just got that.
Yes,
we're going to have aliens fucking attack.
There is that perfect B movie scene, which I mean, I don't know where did Spider-Man 2 come out? Was that after this? It was, wasn't it?
It was after this. It was like 2002-ish, I think.
Because Spider-Man 2 has a very similar scene. You know, I mean, we're skipping ahead a bit here, but you know when the aliens brought back to be sort of dissected, and it turns out to be alive, and you just see the shadows of it, so you see it jump, but it's all silhouetted. Yes. That's very B movie, and they did a very similar thing in Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock when his arms wake up, and it's a very similar thing, and it all goes back to sort of 50s and sort of 50s B movie horror, and that again, that was a sort of nod to that genre. And again, but Independence Day has a lot of that sort of. It does have a little bit of the sort of horror in it. As I said, it has a little bit of everything. But I mean, there's an interesting. I mean, when the aliens attack and the way they did that sort of fire effect, as you mentioned earlier, is they bought loads of airfix kits. And pretty much like they did with Star Wars, because I think they did the similar thing in Star Wars. They turned the models sideways and they let like a sort of small explosion go up like that. But they had the camera turned up like that. And then they, like with the explosion of the White House and the Empire State, they slowed it right down to like 20th of the speed. So they're amazing cameras to do this. And then you get that really slow burning effect. And that was really quite, again, a practical effect. There was not much in the way of CGI there. The beam is the CGI.
So hang on a moment. Hang on. Let's have a nose at this, because that was the bit where he goes, "Oh, time's up. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now fucked." And then you get the
see. That's a model, but the beam effect is CGI. But this bit here is a completely practical effect.
Yeah, it's like, and then you get that concussive kind of explosion all the way through.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I saw a trailer for this. Yeah, hang on a second. I'll point this out. I saw a trailer for this on TV where they were interviewing someone. I think they were interviewing the director, the German sounding fella, and it was on British TV. I think it was on ITV at the time, and they showed a clip from the trailer. And it's weird because there's a guy, I don't know if he's in it, but there's a guy that looked like he was going to be the main character, and then he gets killed in the fucking explosion. But it's like that there.
Yeah.
The part of me is like, it's weird because you what do you call it? You watch these things and you forget that this is purely practical. And it is done really, really well, and some of the effects in that. Thank you for pressing the button there, Keith. Some of the things that bit there is the bit that sold everybody, because everybody saw that. But that's just that's like the tip of the iceberg. There's loads of other things going on.
Then you get. I mean, it's about 5 or 6 minutes of just total destruction, but it's on a global level. I mean, it's funny enough. Towards the end of the movie, there is once they down. Spoilers if you haven't seen this film by now.
The aliens.
Yeah, but there's a funny thing about it. Towards the end, you see once they learn how to down the spaceships, and the spaceships are all down, there's scenes that show all around the world of these ships being down. And in London, you see sort of Big Ben, half of it's broken up and everything. And then you get a shot of Sydney. Now, the two most memorable landmarks of Sydney are the Opera House and the bridge, right? Both are intact, right? And the Australians complained about it. Because they were like, hang on, you destroy everybody else's valuable landmark. Why is ours still intact?
Yes.
But somebody pointed out, well, how else do we know it's fucking Australia? Get a little kangaroo popping in the background. You all right, mate? What was that, Skimmy?
Cool. That's Skimmy. We've beaten the aliens. Oh, brilliant! That's that's really good. Just a quick note, I did a quick inflation calculation based on a US tools because apparently Independence Day made $818 million in its run.
If you round it up, it was 818.
18. Well, I think it's 817 point something, but I needed to round figure for the tool.
But did you see what the budget for it was? The budget for it, I mean, this would be a low budget movie by today's standards.
Yeah,
it was made for 75 million.
Yeah, but hang on, here's a twist. Today's money, it would have made $1.3 billion without China.
Yeah.
Fuck me, that's a film. You said, what did you say? 75?
It was a huge movie. I mean, it was a massive film. I mean, no word of it. I mean, Will Smith helped that film. There's no word of
yes,
because Fresh Prince of the Bel-Air was hugely popular.
It wasn't just him. Jeff Goldblum also helped with that too because he was coming off the back of the Jurassic Park films too. So the two of them. He was a
Paul. But not. I don't think he was as much of a Paul as Will Smith was.
The thing is, it was right.
The popularity of Fresh Prince back then, it was huge. Everybody knew it. Everybody watched it on BBC Two in the UK, and everybody in the States was watching it. It was huge, and everybody thought, hang on, this guy that plays this goofy Will is playing an airline pilot, and the
airline pilot, Air Force pilot,
fighter pilot, and at the time,
airline pilot. Fucking put your seats in the upright position, your trays back. That would have been dull as fuck.
Won't be annoyed that one. The studio was very uneasy about it. And several times they tried to, they kept asking Roland Emmerich and was Dean Devlin, are you sure? Are you sure? And they were like, yes, trust us. Thanks, Malcolm. But I mean, it was arguable he was a huge pull. I mean, don't get me wrong, Jeff Goldblum was, but Will Smith was as well, and arguably Will Smith is the comic relief in that film, and again, it has great one-liners in it. The bit where he just smacks the alien, and that's what I got, Close Encounter. I fucking love that line. It's so cheesy, but I love it.
I think I love the bit where he's dragging the alien in the parachute. He's moaning, and he finally gets to Area 51. And he turns around and goes, you can't enter, you haven't got authorization. So flips open the thing so you can see the alien, goes, that's all the authorization I need. He's like, let him through.
Now, you've touched upon, so I've got another interesting fact about this movie. Originally, the US Air Force was lined up to allow to be shot at certain air bases and allow shooting of the real aircraft on the thing, and military vehicles, military personnel, all going to be used in this, until they say, well, one of the major features of this movie is going to be Area 51, and the US Air Force went, no, you can't do that. we can't be involved if you're going to talk about Area 51. So they had to pull out. So the bit where you see the Air Force Base first attacked, by the way, I have to say, if you go back and watch that scene again, it's clear that stormtroopers were fucking flying those fucking things, because the aircraft never get hit. They don't. They don't. Go watch it. The aircraft don't get hit. You see a couple of fuel trucks explode, all the personnel are running, and the aircraft don't get hit.
Oh, you're talking about the ones on the ground?
Yes, this is the first sort of scene, because it's the same Air Force Base as they used to have the same Air Force Base for well, I can't remember the name of the base where Will Smith's character flies out, but you've got that, you've got where the US government is, and you've got Area 51. It's all the same. It's all the same base. And if you actually pay close attention, you can see it's all shot in the same desert area. But when they first fly in, they had it was a shot, and they didn't have enough clever CGI to blow up the aeroplane, so they just didn't. that's
I doubt, because you'd have to put them on the what do you call it? You'd have to put giant mock-ups and blow the mock-ups up in those days.
Yes, but it was expensive.
You're not going to be blowing up full-blown fighter jets, considering they come up 10, 20 million minimum before you even get into the actual thing, for the avionics and the missiles and hard points and all those things.
Even the helicopter that flies up to say, do its kind of close encounters of the third kind thing with the lights. That was a model that they then blew up.
Yes, yeah. That's sort of one of the things. That's one of the things I do remember about it, because they did that old that was a thumb up to Steven Spielberg, where it was like kind of, oh look, they're peaceful, they respond to music, and oh no, they've been destroyed. We're gonna die.
Do you know how it got its name, Independence Day? Do you know why it was called Independence Day? Because actually, the studio wanted to call it something very different. Fox wanted to call it Doomsday.
Oh,
but Roland yes, I know.
Not very positive. I'm glad they didn't call it Doomsday.
Yes. Part of the reason, or one of the major reasons it was called Independence Day, was this. There were 2 alien invasion movies being made at exactly the same time, and they were going to be released at exactly the same time, around about Independence Day. And Roland Emmerich didn't want any other alien movie involved in that. God knows why, because when you find out what that movie was, you'll go, why did they even think that? But there was another movie out around about the same time.
I can remember this. I think we've had this conversation in the pub.
It was Mars Attacks, and it came out a couple of months later.
Yes,
I love Mars Attacks. That's a completely different type of movie. But they called it Independence Day so that it scared off the competition from releasing that film at the same time. So Mars Attacks was moved back. I mean, it was no competition compared to the behemoth that was Independence Day, but that's part of the reason why Roland Emmerich stuck with the Independence Day thing. And I mean, as it was released on the Independence Day weekend. So, but yes, another interesting fact for you. I've got a few more facts, but we'll get to the.
All right, hang on a second. I want to. I found that clip while we were talking about it a second. I want to see if you're right. So let's
none of the planes blow up.
Let's pop the clip on and let's see if you're right. I think you're right on the ground that none of the on the ground planes get blown up.
What's this? They've been piloted by fucking stormtroopers.
So it's like boom, 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 boom.
No planes blow up. No.
Apart from
how the fuck are they disintegrate these planes?
The biggest fucking thing. Oh, they blow up a few trucks and bits.
Yeah. They blow up a couple of trucks and then a few people get killed, but no, none of the planes.
None of the planes.
Stormtroopers, I'm telling you.
Not one of those planes. It's weird. So that's you're right. I knew that because I watched it and it did look bloody weird to me because it was like kind of I love my aircraft sims when it comes to flying up, pretending to be a pilot and pretending to be a fighter. And I always like attacking the planes that are trying to taxi off the runway. And in one of the games, Ace Combat, one of the games I played, there's one bit where you're taxiing off the runway while you're being attacked. And I was like, oh, the tables have turned. Because the amount of times. And those bastards couldn't hit a fucking broadside of a bomb. They are stormtroopers. But saying that, that first attack, they do take out the entire Air Force. They're airborne.
Yes, they do. Oh, I mean, no, yeah, it just always makes me laugh that they couldn't hit shit on the ground, but then the next thing you see, the entire base is destroyed. But it does make me laugh, and the fact, you know, at the start of the second act when everything's blowing up, the Jasmine, Will Smith's girlfriend, you know, is escaping, and she's in the tunnel. She just conveniently is in the tunnel.
Oh, that bit with the dog. Yeah, I remember that bit.
I love that. Poor dog. The dog got saved.
No. That tunnel is filling. It's fanning out and filling every nook and cranny and crevice and everything. Yeah. And that bit there, it's not like dog in, door shut. But that'd be fine. Dog in.
The dog turns around and shot him with his leg.
Barbecue dog.
My dog's very good at opening doors. He's not very good at closing doors, but he's very fucking good at opening doors. Little bastard. We've got little slidey doors in our house, and he just walks up to the door and he just smacks it with his paw.
Yeah.
But I do love the dog. I do love the dog surviving. Again, you know, it's like again, this is a fast food film. Do not look at it too closely.
Yeah, it's weird because it is how can I put it? It in concept it is as grim as fuck, but in execution it's fun and entertaining because it's like kind of just exterminated 1/5 of the human race on day one. I do find that mad. And you
even have the president launching a nuclear weapon on American soil.
You kind of forgive him for that. There's a giant 26-foot diameter alien spaceship that has just destroyed, I don't know, Colorado or somewhere like that. And it's like kind of, maybe we should have another pop at it with something a bit stronger. That was good. And then you've got then you got the bit where you're on you got the bit on the base where Will Smith turns up with the alien and they chop it out. And you meet Brett Spiner.
Brett Spiner. Again, another reason I love the film because there's a geeky connection. Who then is completely... Again, we won't really touch upon the sequel because it's just not good. But you see in the extended version, they confirm that Brett Spiner is dead. So, you know, how they brought it back in the sequel.
Yeah.
He is confirmed dead because he's just like that. Yeah, but I like Brett Spiner's character in this. I thought, you know, he was a bit of a dick, but
he was desperately trying not to be Brett Spiner in it, and it's weird because you had Adam Baldwin.
Yes, but Adam Baldwin not playing Adam Baldwin. Because Adam Baldwin is Adam Baldwin in everything else I've ever seen him in. I mean, he was in that thing about the ship with a virus where he plays Adam Baldwin. He's in Firefly, where he plays.
No, hang on a second. In the last ship, Adam Baldwin plays Adam Baldwin when that character's off duty.
Kind of.
Yeah. But so he has his professional version, and then as soon as he's not being professional, he's Adam Baldwin.
He's still very much kind of Adam Baldwin. He really is. He's the same character as he is in Truck. Okay, he's a slightly exaggerated version in Firefly, but in this, he's a nice guy. He's not Adam Baldwin. He's a nice bloke.
Adam Baldwin's okay.
I love Adam Baldwin. I love him in everything he's in, but he's kind of rough around the edges and everything else, if you know what I mean. Especially Firefly, but I love him in Firefly. He's one of my favourite characters in Firefly. But in this, he's not Adam Baldwin. He's not playing Adam Baldwin.
Adam Baldwin. Yes.
But again, I love him in it. I mean, it really is a black and white movie. You've got the really slimy CIA guy that gets his comeuppance by getting fired.
I find that a bit tragic because that guy died recently.
Yes,
that guy.
So did the general. It wasn't that long ago. The guy that played the general was only a few years ago that he passed. Yeah. And I love him. You know, instead of having like these brash American generals, this guy was like your granddad.
Yeah,
wasn't he? He was slightly rough, but he was a nice old guy in this film. And there was good guys and bad guys. There was none in the middle. And this is why we call it a fast food film, because it just was that. But anyway, we'll go back into it because you've got Randy Quaid's character.
Oh God, we
Randy
haven't
Quaid.
touched on Randy Quaid, the crazy man who got alien probed in the anus and has told the entire town that he works in that he was anally probed by these guys. And
Well, no, he doesn't say he was. He doesn't say he was anally probed. It's an interview with the two guys that are ribbing on him in the bar.
hang on a second, Keith. With the trauma that he seems to have gone through, he was anally probed. Okay.
Yeah, but because the funny thing is the two guys that are taking the piss out of him in the bar as the aliens turn up. Because don't you remember when we see him, he fucks up the crop dusting, which is a funny scene. He plays this nut job. Randy Quaid.
Oh, I love that.
Job. How ironic. And then we see him in the bar drinking his misery away, and then the two guys at the bar start ribbing on him, and then the aliens fucking come in, which I love. But then you see interviewing, and they go, and he told me the aliens, they did something to him sexually. Like,
he was probed. Non-consensual probing is a thing, all right.
But Randy Quaid, oh my God! I mean, in the last few years, I think Randy Quaid has overtaken the insanity of the character that he played. He's self-released pornos. Is the nicest way to put it online, hasn't he? He doesn't like Rupert Murdoch. He's a Trump supporter, which in Hollywood is a bad thing. We're not going into politics here, but in Hollywood, we all know that Trump supporting is a bad thing.
Yes, because because in Hollywood they like diversity as long as you all vote the same way.
Yeah. His insanity, his dislike for Rupert Murdoch. Let me put it this way: he gets a mask of Rupert Murdoch, puts it on his wife, and then proceeds to fuck her. Okay.
His wife is a really understanding lady.
No, she's as nuts as he is.
Understanding.
They went sort of later in the 2010s. They went to Canada claiming political asylum from America, and this went on for about 5 years. And then they.
Hang on a second, because I remember when Trump was getting voted in, and everyone was like, "Kind of, oh, if Trump gets voted in, we're moving to Canada like that." Well, at least he fucking stuck to his guns.
No, Randy Quaid is a Trump supporter.
I know. I'm just saying that he's like kind of when Obama was there, he tried to get the fuck out, but these people are still remaining there, and I would appreciate if
well, no, he was. I mean, they'd done some naughty things, or supposedly. He is saying that he's been set up and blah blah. I mean, he's nuts. I mean, he is totally batshit crazy. But he's even more nuts than his eccentric character in this. But here's the thing, because really we should sort of talk about Independence Day. The ending that you see in the cinema is not what was filmed. And they even did the special effects. It got to the point of test audiences.
I was just looking at, it's the thing with the biplane, yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
So originally, Randy Quaid's character does not volunteer to be a pilot, and he comes in at the end on his biplane, which is going as fast as the fighter jets, and then he takes out the ship. And a lot of test audiences found this unbelievable. I mean, forget the fucking 15-mile spaceships above cities. No, that was perfectly believable. But Randy Quaid in his biplane taking on the thing, that was a step too far. Right? So they had to call back a load of actors for reshoots. And if you pay attention, every time you see Randy Quaid in the cockpit, his hair is a lot shorter because they had to do a load of reshoots. Adam Baldwin's hair is shorter. There's a load of reshoots, and this is where I was talking about the special effect for the Empire State Building, because when the plane flies up into the beam, they didn't have enough time to do the shot, so they took the shot they had already shot for the Empire State Building, turned it around the other way, and that, as you see the explosion go boom, 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 like that, it's exactly the same shot. It's the same effect shot, and if you zoom in, you can see it's the Empire State Building. because they literally had a week to do it before the movie released, because it was really testing badly with the audiences. So the final shot of him sacrificing himself, which actually is a far better ending.
Yeah, so I'm trying. Hang on a second. There it is. Sorry, I am trying to find the clip because I think he salutes in the cockpit, which makes me laugh because it's like it hasn't got visual.
Yeah, he does. He does.
Salutes
when he comes in the movie, because
salutes the cockpit.
The president has the president has no more missiles left, and he goes, "Is there any pilots out there that can help?" And it's like Randy Quaid's in the cockpit.
Yes. It is. Hang on a second. Oh yeah,
There you go.
There's a bit where he salutes. Who are you saluting? And it's weird because you can see it goes to shooting the things like jammed. Sorry, I'm just trying to not to hit any kind of copyright violations. Just show some bits. Right, so this is.
Don't worry, we're not.
Oh yeah, this is a bit. This is a bit. So yeah, he flies up, and then I think. Oh look there! It's Adam Baldwin. And it's like
Adam Baldwin.
That plane, that plane would be going a lot faster than that. I tell you that for a fact.
They had a day. They literally had a couple of days to stick this shot together. So he flies into the beam. It's like, I'm back.
And then it's the explosion upside down. So, crikey, Randy, how long are you taking? There you go. You're right. You could see.
You could see the silhouette of the thing, and that is the Empire State Building turned upside down.
Yeah.
There you go. And then yes, obviously they win. I mean, there's a scene that got a lot of complaints from non-Americans because there are a lot of people around the world complained about how nationalistic this film was, and in some ways it is. I mean, you get the British pilot who is very hello. We have to communicate that I'm British and quick. But they make a point of you see, because again, this was just after the Gulf War, and they are with the Iraqis, side by side. And it's the Americans. Oh, about bloody time. It's like, the Americans have got a plan. They've got a plan about bloody time. Like, we can't come up with anything. But I don't mind it. I don't care because it's still a fun film. It is.
It is a fun film.
And again, it has a brilliant ending. It has, you have the longest. We have a Hollywood 30 seconds, which is about 3.5 minutes, because they have 30 seconds. Because why you've got everybody's a hero in this. Is again, all the good guys get their heroic moment. They all get a heroic moment, which is again really. You got Bill Pullman, the president's character, gets his heroic speech and he goes up there and he fights like the rest of them. You get David by Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith's character. They get their heroic moment, and I love that their scenes together. Especially the bit where they fly up to the mothership and you see the invasion fleet, which again is really cool. But then they have 30 seconds to escape, and that 30 seconds is a damn sight lot longer than 30 seconds. It's about 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, it is. But it's a general rule of writing that it's the time that it takes to explain what's going on is the time that it is.
And it's the bit where they were about to smoke the cigars, and then they fire the bomb, and the bomb goes through it, and then they get released, and it was like, "Oh, I didn't hear them, fat lady." The fat lady. Will Smith does one of his rants, and I love it. And he fight, and then the ending is great because you've got them walking through the desert. You've got Pilgrim, making up with David. You've got the two women and the kid, and it's a feel good ending. And that's what I love about it. Another fact for you: do you know who the music's by?
I did. I know I did because I looked at it a moment ago. It was by a guy called David Arnold, who does. I'm sure.
What else?
He does Sherlock and James Bond.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. That was the connection. Yeah, he did Sherlock. He does the music for Sherlock. He did two
James Bond.
He did 2 Bond movies: Tomorrow Never Dies and The World's Not Enough. He was the one that kind of did the clubbing version of the Bond theme.
I thought that was Moby.
But David Arnold, I think, was involved in it.
Anyway, I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up on Moby.
Oh, one more fact for you.
Go on then. One more fact to send us on our way.
Because it was released in the UK about back then. They used, because the internet wasn't like it is now. It was released quite a bit later in the UK, and part of drumming up of the sort of excitement about this movie, BBC Radio 1, not Radio 4, Radio 1 decided to do an Orson Welles style radio drama called Independence Day UK. And it had Patrick Moore playing himself fighting the aliens. No word of a lie.
Okay.
No word of a lie. Patrick Moore takes on the fucking aliens. It's amazing. It also had Colin Baker in it, the most disliked doctor. He's not the most disliked doctor. That's
not
anymore. Sorry, I'm sorry, Colin. I forgot. Yes, it also had a few other famous people from the UK. If you're British, you know who they are. But Toya Wilcox was in it as well. But it was an hour-long UK radio drama done in the vein of Orson Welles, including an Orson Welles style announcement in it as well. And it was aired on BBC Radio 1. But seriously, Patrick Moore playing Patrick Moore taking on the aliens, which to me, it's just amazing.
Okay.
It's just amazing. I need to hear that again. I remember hearing it, but it was a long time ago, and I need to find it because I just want to hear Patrick Moore swearing at aliens. I think it'd be amazing.
Okay. Let's just what do you call it? Let's have a quick flick through the comments before we go, because Dave, our stalwart viewer, has joined us, and he's like kind of Independence Day was a classic. It was. Yeah. I only watched the sequel once. I watched the sequel. I don't think the sequel was terrible. I just didn't think it was as good.
Gareth said it was good. It's not good.
Fuck off. And then it's like kind of love the Lord of the Rings movies. They were overly long, but they were very long books too, Dave. And then we got the Hobbit. We talked about the Hobbit movies there, and then we've got proper epic scene for the explosions. District 9 was good, and then we've got Malcolm.
Thanks,
I'm assuming that's the bit where I made the joke about Will Smith being an airline pilot, and then he's put something sensible, very sensible. Let's pretend there was no sequel, which I'm quite happy with.
Didn't mention Mary McDonald as the president's wife, who later went on to play a president herself in Battlestar Galactica.
It's ironic. Didn't she die of like something in Independence Day, and then also die of like cancer or something in?
No, she died. Yeah, she died of internal bleeding in Independence Day, and she died of cancer twice in Battlestar Galactica.
Twice? When did she die?
She died, and then she was kind of brought back again. And cured, but she kind of went dead for a couple of seconds, and had that vision. Then she comes back again, and then she died at the end of. Well, it's implied that she dies at the end because Adama goes off with her, doesn't he?
Yes.
He flies off into the sunset with her, effectively. Again, I quite like the ending about Star Galactica, and they're doing a sequel to it, set in the same universe, not a reboot.
I like the blood and chrome thing that they did. That was really good. Yes. I really enjoyed that.
A lot of people saying it's a reboot. It's not. It's set in the same universe.
Okay.
Because you can't reboot it a third time. That would just be sacrilege.
Not without 20 years at least between.
No.
That's the minimum time for a good reboot. Anyway.
But yes, we're going to be doing more of these, and we've got some more great movies coming up. There is one that we're going to do, which I'm not going to tell you about yet. We'll announce it, which is near enough as good as Independence Day. It's not in the same vein. It's not sci-fi, but I equally love that film. And it came out the same year. That's the only thing I'm telling you. And we'll cover that one. And of course, we're going to have to touch upon the 80s. We're going to have to do some of the
80s was so brilliant films. I've got to sit down with my brothers, and we've got to talk about some of the great films that we watched. Because I'll tell you a story about Dexter and RoboCop. Yeah, I let him watch the new version of RoboCop because he's like a 12. Yeah, not an issue with it. Yeah, he's like, Dad, what? It's a bit boring. Like that. Oh, was it? And then when I put the new one on, he was enthralled. It was like the bit where the bit he's a little sadist, because the bit where the guy gets killed in the conference room, where he gets shot by the Ed 209, he's like pissing blood and everything everywhere. It was the extended version on either Netflix or Prime. So that scene goes on longer than it should do, because when you watch it on the cut version, it's more dramatic. Yeah, it happens. He dies. Oh my god, it's tragic. Yeah, but they do it so it's like overkill, and it's like 3 minutes of this guy going. He was pissing himself laughing because he thought it was hilarious.
RoboCop is an interesting one. It is a popcorn. It is a fast food movie.
I don't know. I think it's.
Well, yeah, that's the problem, because
as
there's
a kid,
lot of undertones.
This is the thing. As a kid, that was a fast food film, but when you become an adult, there's 2 additional layers in there of the politics, and then there's the Jesus Christ metaphor. But you have to kind of drill into it.
But I know I can see your point that it's probably not a fast food movie, but to me, Independence Day is just a perfectly executed blockbuster from the 90s. If you are sitting at home and you're getting a bit cabin feverish, or you're in the lockdown and you just want to escape, stick Independence Day on. Even if you've seen it, trust me, you'll be smiling at the end of it, because it's just a brilliant film and you can escape for a couple of hours. Watch it. We love it.
And that's goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.